Quite the promises made there. Now, President-elect William Ruto takes over an economy battered by high inflation, unsustainable debt portfolio, high unemployment rate, and a worsening business environment. Though Ruto campaigned on a platform of empowering low-income earners, it will be a tough balancing act between reviving the ailing economy, managing fuel subsidies, and tapering the cost of living. Carol Njenga looks at the economic in-tray that awaits the incoming president.
As Kenya ushers in a new administration with President William Ruto at the helm, expectations are high among Kenyans that top on his priority list is lowering the cost of basic commodities and managing the high wage bill.
Tuna vijana ambayo wamemaliza form 4, wengine hata wanataka kwenda university na hatuna uwezo, chakula imepanda, aweze kutusaidia hata vijana wetu wakipata hata kama ni kazi ya kufagia hapa town. Tutafurahia kwa sababu sisi ni watu wa bottom up. Wale wa chini alisema ya kwamba atainua wa chini.
Mambo ya mafuta ya kupigia chakula imepanda sana, sabuni imepanda sana, hata kuoga tutaweza kuoga.
Maana watu wa chini wengi kidogo maisha imewakalia. So ni vyema wakati wanaingia waangalia hawa watu wa chini kabisa.
All eyes will be on the president-elect as he takes the reins of power on Tuesday, with hopes that he delivers on his agenda centered on revamping the economy, uplifting the marginalized communities, lowering the cost of living, expanding the tax base, and creating jobs for the youth within the first 100 days.
Election is about one thing. It is about the economy. Everything else is a sideshow, and everything else is a distraction.
Ruto's manifesto is anchored on 6 core pillars of agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprise economy, housing and settlement, healthcare, digital superhighway and creative economy, environment and climate change.
We have a crisis of cost of living. Our agricultural productivity has not matched our population growth. Agenda yetu tunaweka pesa ya kutosha kwa kilimo. Tumesema mbolea tutapunguza.
We need to prioritize spending where the majority of the labor force is, in agriculture. About 54% of the labor force is in agriculture. 82% of the labor force is in the informal sector. So they have very specific proposals to support agriculture, smallholder agriculture, and to support informal trade through funds, access to credit, dealing with the issue of their asset base, taking various measures to ensure that they have space to trade, they have, inclusive land use.
President William Ruto faces economic challenges, and it will be interesting to see the solutions he will provide to the current economic predicament in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and the rising cost of living that has sent prices of essential commodities such as maize, flour, fuel and cooking oil to the roof, even as inflation breached the medium-term target to reach 8.5% in August, a 62-month high.
Tumesema kama Kenya Kwanza, lazima tupunguze gharama ya maisha, lazima tupunguze gharama ya chakula.
This in addition to the 500 billion shillings owed to suppliers and contractors by ministries and state agencies will indeed be a daunting task for the new administration.
We have also recommended that going into the future and to avoid the subject of huge pending bills in government, we have issued instructions that going forward, pending bills will be paid on a fast in, fast out basis, so that the older pending bills are sorted out before any new pending bills are done.
The country is also weighed down by a huge debt, high unemployment rate, and an unstable currency. Ruto, in his manifesto, promised to deal with the ballooning debt, saying he will put brakes on borrowing to avoid a debt crisis in Kenya akin to the one facing Ghana.
We will put brakes on unbudgeted projects. In fact, that is the biggest source of our problem. projects that are not within the budget, so that we cannot keep our fiscal deficit at what we have committed, 5% or 5.9%.
Amount of debt we procured, the places that debt was put in terms of the spending priorities have not been giving us returns, forcing the government to borrow more and more, to an extent that we are borrowing more than our ability to pay. So that out of every 100 shillings that government collects in tax revenue, about 70%, 70 shillings goes to debt repayment. This is not a sustainable position.
As of December 2021, the country's public debt stood at 8.2 trillion shillings, which is about 70% of GDP, with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank warning that Kenya is on the brink of debt distress if left unattended. The 12th Parliament raised the country's debt ceiling thrice during President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure to allow the state to finance the budget deficits. With the public debt capped at 10 trillion shillings, very little headroom is left for the new government to borrow, as Wanjiru explains.
They must borrow in the short term, but they must quickly try and get outside of this debt cycle. Yes, I think there is some small room to borrow, but the issue is borrow for what? And how do you get out of the trap? Because
in the last 10 years of Uhuru's reign, the government deepened borrowing to finance key infrastructure projects like the Standard Gauge Railway, expansion of Mombasa Port, among other projects. Experts say for Kenya to evade a debt crisis, the country must ramp up exports, slice public wage bills, and manage import bills, relook at the country's fiscal and monetary policies, and rework the debt repayment schedule.
They need to, one of the immediate priorities is going to be, one, make sure you have the right people in office, because our debt crisis is due to corruption, is due to state capture, is due to political interests in the budget process distorting our public finance system. So the first thing is accountability.
Ruto, in his manifesto, promised to tackle the high unemployment rate, citing that 10 million Kenyans are either unemployed or underemployed.
Matters unemployment are not matters that can be taken lightly anymore. These are matters that are an emergency. In fact, unemployment is a national crisis, and that is why, as Kenya Kwanza, we are saying we have a Marshall Plan on dealing with a big crisis of unemployment.
All eyes are on the president-elect to see what kind of economic policies his administration will employ to put Kenya back on the path of robust economic growth. Caroline Jenga for Prime Edition.